I'm going to share with you every single secret on how to hire and work with the best virtual assistants, including what tasks you should give your virtual assistant, how can you pay them, how much should you pay them, what tools you should use to make sure you're getting the most out of your virtual assistant, and of course, how to make sure you hire the best possible virtual assistant. And the first thing you should do is smash that like button, because I'm going to be sharing all my secrets in this video, so hit the like button. But the first real thing you should do if you're thinking about hiring a virtual assistant is write down every single task you would want them to do. For example, my virtual assistants do a lot of different tasks. They do things like responding to emails for me, posting on social media, handling any kind of customer support. They also write articles for me, do research. I might ask them, hey, find the top podcasts in a specific niche, find the top influencers or blogs or whatever in a specific niche. And my virtual assistants even edit videos like this for me, which makes it extremely easy for me because I just come in this room, I hit record, and I send them the files, and they do all the cutting, all the editing, all the splicing, and turn my raw video into something that's actually polished and usable. Really, you can have a virtual assistant do just about anything. I recommend anything that you do that's repetitive. Don't do it yourself, have a virtual assistant do it. Anything that's algorithmic, meaning that you could explain to someone step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. on how to do the task. You shouldn't be doing that task, you should have your virtual assistant do that task. The second secret you need to make sure you do if you're gonna hire a virtual assistant is to track their time. And I recommend an app called Hubstaff. I've been using Hubstaff for 5-6 years. Since I hired my very first virtual assistant, I've been using Hubstaff. And Hubstaff is a program that your virtual assistant can install on their computer. And every time they start working for you, they'll clock in, and when they stop working for you, they'll clock out. But what makes Hubstaff extra powerful is it will actually take random screenshots of your virtual assistant's computer as they're working for you, which means if they say they start working at 9 o'clock and they stop working at 5 o'clock, you can look and see what tasks they were actually doing. Were they actually working for you, or were they doing something completely different? And I've caught virtual assistants working on other tasks, working for other people while charging me money. And if I find that a virtual assistant is doing this, I fire them immediately, because to me, it's like stealing money from me. Luckily, it's extremely rare and it's only happened a few times. I'll put a link down below to a free trial of Hubstaff. I highly recommend using it if you're gonna be hiring a virtual assistant. And I'm gonna be talking about all the different tools I use when working with my virtual assistants later in this video. But secret number 3 is to get my free checklist on how to hire a virtual assistant. I'll put a link down below and up here. Not only by clicking that link will you get the free checklist for hiring a virtual assistant, I'll also give you my step-by-step guide on how to hire a virtual assistant, including what you should say in your title of your post, what messages you should send to the applicants that apply for your job, and literally everything you need to know step-by-step on how to hire the best possible virtual assistant. And I'll explain my system in depth with secret number 7, but another thing you should consider before hiring a virtual assistant is to create weekly tasks. Basically, create a checklist of everything that you're already doing during your week and tell your assistant, every Monday I want you to check emails and respond to emails. Every Tuesday, I want you to post in social media. Figure out what tasks you do every single week, what tasks your business needs to get done every single week. I recommend creating a very simple checklist so they know if it's Monday, here's the tasks that need to get done. Now, in addition to repetitive weekly tasks, sometimes you're gonna have project-based tasks for your virtual assistant. And what I recommend doing is creating a priority scale. And I have what's called P0, P1, P2, and P3 tasks. A P0 task, if I give that to my virtual assistant, they need to get that task done as soon as they start working. A P1 task means it needs to get done within 24 hours. A P2 task means it needs to be done within a week, and a P3 task means it needs to be done within a month. Now, obviously, also you can give certain deadlines for tasks, but this is a quick shorthand I use to communicate with my VAs. If something needs to get done right away, I tell them, hey, it's a P0, get this done right away. And I'll explain in more depth later in this video how I use Slack and Asana and other tools to make it so it's very easy to give my virtual assistant tasks. Now I'm going to talk about the secrets I use to hire rockstar virtual assistants for only a few dollars an hour in just a minute. But the last thing to consider before you hire your first virtual assistant is to come up with some evergreen tasks for your virtual assistant. You want to make sure that you have tasks that even if your virtual assistant runs out of their weekly tasks, all their different project-based tasks, that they have something to do. because when you're hiring a virtual assistant, oftentimes you're hiring them for 20 or 40 hours a week. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of task that they can do even when they run out of their other tasks. And I call these evergreen tasks. An example of this is for my first company, we sold dance clothing. And what I had my virtual assistant do when they ran out of all the other different tasks is go and make a list of every single dance studio in the United States, collect their email, their phone number, everything, so that we could contact them and tell them about our product. Now, obviously, this is not a super high priority task, but if they don't have anything else to do, it is something valuable for them to be spending their time doing. I even made it so that when they collect the email for the dance studio, I told them send an email to the dance studio asking to interview them for our blog. That way the dance studio would know about our company, and then if the dance studio did do the interview, I would have my virtual assistant turn it into an article and post it on our blog and follow up with the dance studio, letting them know that the article has been published and to make sure and share it with all their different students. This ended up leading to hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra revenue for that company. Secret number 7, if you're going to be hiring a virtual assistant, I highly recommend hiring from the Philippines. First off, it's a lot cheaper to do so. You can hire a virtual assistant for $2 to $3 an hour. If you really want someone highly skilled, you might have to pay $4 to $5 an hour, but you can get college educated people for only a few dollars an hour. On top of that, in the Philippines, they speak really good English. They learn and speak English throughout their entire school system, which means that you're not going to have a lot of issues in communicating with them. Another thing is they have very good internet. A lot of other countries where you can hire people for very inexpensive, their internet is just not very good. It's not very fast. It's not very reliable. However, in the Philippines, they have high-speed internet. On top of that, the Philippines has a culture of honesty and gratitude. And I actually went over to the Philippines to visit my virtual assistants, and I asked them about the job and what they think about the money they were getting. And they were very happy with the amount of money they were getting. They said that they were making about the same amount of money as a professor, a college professor would be making, or an engineer in their country. But they're able to work from home. They don't have to deal with the crazy traffic in a lot of the major Philippine cities. So I highly recommend, if you're gonna hire a virtual assistant, go with the Philippines. And if you're gonna hire a virtual assistant in the Philippines, I highly recommend going to onlinejobs.ph. I'll put a link down below. It does cost a little bit of money to be able to post your job, but it's 100% worth it. I honestly was nervous when I had to pay to post my first job. I didn't know, I'm like, is this a scammy website? I wasn't sure, but then I posted it and I found an absolutely amazing virtual assistant. Now, if you're looking for a virtual assistant outside of the Philippines, Hubstaff actually has a portal where you can go and you can hire people from all around the world. There's also sites like Upwork, but the problem with Upwork is, generally speaking, the people on Upwork are going to charge a lot more money than getting a full-time assistant from somewhere like onlinejobs.ph or Hubstaff. After you post your job, secret number 8 is give your virtual assistant or your applicant a sample assignment. I'll put a link to my sample assignment down below, but generally speaking, I ask any applicant that wants to get a job with me to do a few different things. For instance, I'll say take a screenshot of how fast your internet speed is. Take a screenshot of how much space you have on your computer and how powerful your computer is. You want to make sure that when you're hiring a virtual assistant that their computer isn't way outdated, it's not extremely slow, especially if you're hiring them to do things like video editing. But the sample assignment is a way for you to figure out of the 100 different applicants you get, which one is actually going to do a good job. And you'll be shocked at the different levels of quality you get at sample assignments. Another thing that'll have the applicants do is fill out a bunch of different personality tests. Now, the first part about making them do these personality tests is to see how serious are they about this job. And if they're not willing to go through the hour or two it's going to take to fill out the different personality tests, then honestly, they're not serious enough about their job. They don't want it bad enough. I don't want to work with them. But the other thing it's going to do is it's going to tell me not only what kind of a person they are, but how do they fit with my personality style and how are they going to fit within the culture of my business. And this also lets me know how to interact with them, what motivates them, things like that. So I have them take the Big 5 test, the Myers-Briggs test, the Enneagram test, a test called the Bird test, and an IQ test. Now, out of all these, to be honest with you, one of the more important ones to me is the IQ test. Because if they score extremely low on the IQ, even if they're a good culture fit, they're probably not great at some of the basic problem solving that I'm going to have them do. Now, of course, this isn't always the case and it depends on the different job, but generally speaking, I want people that have a really good ability to solve problems. The Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram test usually aren't as important to me. It depends on the job though. I will say for certain positions, there's certain Myers-Briggs type or Enneagram types that are gonna generally do a better job. For instance, on the Enneagram, if I'm hiring a video editor or a graphic designer, I probably wanna see someone that has a little bit of the 4 type personality for Enneagram. The big 5 personality type is also very important to me. I want to see that they have a high level of conscientiousness. This is basically how hard do they work? How organized are they? Another thing that I find very interesting is how agreeable are they? Certain positions, I want someone that's just going to do whatever I say. I don't want them to question every little thing that I ask them to do. But depending on the role, I might want them to question everything that I'm doing, because sometimes if they're not very agreeable, they actually might be really good at challenging me and poking holes in my ideas. But of course, it depends on the position within the company. I'll put all the different personality tests I use in that virtual assistant hiring pack. Again, I'll put a link to that down below and up here. And all the different personality tests that I use are completely free. Once you've done all the work and you've narrowed it down to just a few different applicants that you think might be perfect for your job, I recommend interviewing the finalists via Skype or Zoom. You need to make sure that you actually do a video call for a few different reasons. One, it checks how good is their internet actually, because they might say they have really fast internet, but if they can't even do a video call, their internet speed's probably not that good. You also can make sure they are who they say they are. It does happen sometimes where people put fake pictures up. They try to pretend like they're someone that they're actually not. And the third reason is just to check their vibe. How do you interact with them? When you ask them a question, you can read their facial expressions, see if they're lying to you. And this has happened to me. I've had interactions with people where I realize right away, we don't have a good vibe. We don't have a good connection. Once you do find someone to hire, I recommend creating a day 1 orientation sheet. And again, in the virtual assistant hiring pack that I'll put down below, I show what my day 1 orientation sheet looks like. But basically, you want to make it very clear from the beginning, what do they need to do to start working for you? And I recommend saying, download Hubstaff, download Dropbox, download Slack, download whatever different tools that you use in your organization. On this day 1 orientation sheet, I also recommend you to establish the rules of your business. And again, if you want to see the rules that I have in my business, check it out down below. But the way that I work in my business is I have a strike system. And there's different things that if my virtual assistants don't follow the rules, they get a strike. For instance, if I give them a weekly task and say every Monday you need to do this task, if one Monday they skip that task, that is a strike. And the way my strike system works is if you get 5 strikes within a month, you're fired. And this is a very clear way to see if people are following the rules. Another example would be if I give you a P0 task and you don't get it done within 24 hours, unless you have a good reason. Like if you tell me, hey, I didn't get it done because of X, Y, and Z, that's a strike. And a lot of my different rules, as long as there's good communication, I don't really mind. I won't always give my virtual assistant a strike, but that's part of the rules, is saying you need to communicate with me if there's some kind of task that you can't get done on time. You can also establish rules like having them send you a daily email. And I highly recommend this when you first hire a virtual assistant. Tell them every single day to send you an email. And in that email, it should include what they did during that day, what questions they have for you, and any issues that they ran into. Now, as far as giving your virtual assistant tasks, I recommend using a software called OBS. And this is a software that can record your screen absolutely for free. I also recommend using Dropbox. So you can record your screen using OBS, and then when you finish recording your screen, it'll save it to Dropbox. Have your virtual assistant also install Dropbox, and basically that screen recording goes straight to your virtual assistant so they can watch it and learn how to do the task. So what I'd recommend you do is do the task one time, show them how to do it step by step, and then tell them, hey, you know what? Every Monday from here on out, I want you to do this task. Another option is you can use an extension called Loom, and Loom basically is an extension for Chrome that will help you to be able to record your screen. Now, if you don't want to record your screen, another thing that you can do is you could use Slack or even just email and just send them the task. I recommend using Slack and creating a channel within Slack called Tasks. And what I do is in that channel, whenever I have a task for one of my virtual assistants, I tag them in the task and I put what the priority level is. I then go on to explain the task or attach any kind of screen recording. And one of the rules that I have is once they see the task, I want them to acknowledge that they have seen the task. And then once they've completed the task, acknowledge that the task has been completed. Trust me, when you give your virtual assistants a task, I highly recommend always having them respond and say, I saw that. Yes, acknowledge, something like that. It's very, very frustrating when you give your virtual assistant tasks and there's just radio silence. Sometimes you're not sure if they even saw it. So I highly recommend having your virtual assistants respond to all emails, to all tasks that you give them, letting you know that they have in fact received it. Now, when you find yourself starting to have different repeat tasks, I recommend creating SOPs. SOPs are standard operating procedures. Basically, if I do a screen recording and I give it to one of my virtual assistants and tell them every Monday we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna post to social media, for example, what I have them do is basically create a Google Doc and outline step 1, 2, 3, 4 on that task. And what this does is it makes it so that if that virtual assistant ever quits or if I ever have to fire them and I need to replace them, I can do it extremely easily. It also makes it so the virtual assistant really understands the task on an even deeper level. The goal is eventually to have a handbook of all the different procedures in your business outlined step by step, so that if you needed to hire a bunch of brand new virtual assistants to come run your business, you could do it very easily. This is going to make it so your entire business is systematized and automated so that you can go on vacation, you can go travel the world, and your virtual assistants are able to run your business because everything's been outlined step by step on how to run your business. Now, once you hire a virtual assistant and you've been working with them, I recommend doing at least once a week a weekly call. Now, if you just have one virtual assistant, this is very easy. You just go back and forth. You ask them questions about how the job's going and just do a quick call. Now, you can do this call daily if you want to. I think that's overkill. I honestly think once a week is enough. Another benefit of this is by showing your face and interacting with your virtual assistant, you actually build a relationship, and it makes it so they're more likely to work hard for you, less likely to just randomly quit because they realize that you're a real person. And on the flip side, you realize that they're a real person, meaning that you're going to treat them better. This is going to create a stronger and a better relationship, and ultimately it's going to be better for you, better for the business, better for your virtual assistant, better for everyone. Now, in full honesty, I currently have a team of 4 different virtual assistants, and for the last few months, I've been traveling and I haven't always had reliable internet. So I actually outsourced the weekly meeting. I had one of my virtual assistants start running the weekly meeting. And during our weekly meeting, we do a bunch of different things. We talk about all the different tasks. We talk about what's going good, what's going wrong in the business, but we also try to get to know each other. And I always start out the weekly meetings by asking everybody, all the different virtual assistants, what was the best thing that happened last week? And what's one thing that happened last week that you could improve, or how could you have improved last week? Now, in addition to the weekly call, I recommend once a month meeting with every single one of your virtual assistants one-on-one and just asking them, how are they enjoying the job? Asking them, what have they been doing that they enjoy? What things have they been doing that they don't enjoy? Tell them what you think they've been doing good, what they could improve on, and try to set goals every single month. Set goals with your virtual assistant of, hey, next month, we're going to try to make it so you don't make this mistake, or next month, we're going to try to reach a certain sales goal. Another thing that you can do during this monthly meeting is look at their screenshots in Hubstaff. Make sure that they're not wasting their time or your money. And so I recommend at least once a month, quickly going through the screenshots, make sure that they're not screwing around. If you want to do this every week, absolutely you can, or every pay period. Now, one question I get all the time is how to pay your virtual assistants, and I recommend using PayPal. I actually pay my virtual assistants an hourly wage. I tell them to add up all the different hours they've worked in the last pay period and multiply it by their hourly wage and send me a bill in PayPal. So they go to Hubstaff, they calculate all the different hours, they send me an exported Excel sheet from Hubstaff showing all the different hours that they've worked and the bill in PayPal, and I basically just pay them. Now, I personally pay my virtual assistants on the 1st and the 15th of every month. So basically twice a month. But again, if I see that they said they worked a lot of hours and they're charging me a lot of money, but they didn't really get a lot of work done, that is when I go in and I check the screenshots. And usually what I end up finding is whatever task I gave them actually took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. But sometimes you will catch people that are charging you for hours that they didn't actually work, but sometimes you will find that your virtual assistants were working on some other project, and I'll either fire them or I'll tell them, you know what, I saw for 4 hours you were working on some other project. I'm not going to pay you for those 4 hours. So this is why I highly recommend getting Hubstaff. It's worth every single penny. It's very cheap software and it's going to save you a lot of headache. Again, I'll put a link down below with a free trial so you can try out Hubstaff. But if you're going to hire a virtual assistant, you need some kind of a time tracking software. Another thing you need if you're going to hire virtual assistants is to establish KPIs and goals for your business. KPIs are key performance indicators, and every single virtual assistant, every single person in your business should have a KPI. For instance, if you hire someone for social media, you have to figure out what is the most important thing. Maybe your goal is just to post as many times per week on Instagram as possible, in which case that would be the KPI. Or maybe the KPI is to get as many followers as possible, or maybe it's to get as many people to click on the link in your bio and to collect the email. You have to figure out what is the most important metric for your business. That way you can tell your assistant and they can focus 100% of their energy on increasing that number. Now I'm gonna get to the top tools I recommend when hiring and working with virtual assistants in just a minute. But before I get into that, another secret to keep in mind is to actually create a company culture. Make sure that you have a good relationship with your virtual assistants, and also make sure that the virtual assistants have a good relationship with each other. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but one, as I already mentioned, is to do the weekly call and ask them, what was the best thing that happened last week? What was one thing that you could improve about last week? Try to actually get to know your virtual assistants, figure out what they do for fun, and try to build a deeper relationship than just being the boss and them being the employee. But that brings me to my top tools when working with virtual assistants. And as I've already said 100 times in this video, Hubstaff. Hubstaff was the first tool I ever used when working with virtual assistants. If you're at all nervous about hiring a virtual assistant, this is gonna make things so transparent for you. It's gonna make sure you don't waste any money and that whoever you hire as a virtual assistant is actually doing what they say they're gonna do. Another tool that I've talked about a few times in this video is Slack. And Slack makes it so you can organize all your communication with your virtual assistants a lot easier. Now, when I first heard about Slack, I didn't understand it. How is it helpful? But as I've used it more and more, I see why it's better than just sending lots of emails. So the way that Slack works is you can have lots of different channels and you can post in those channels and multiple different members of your team can all interact with that thread. So for example, I have one channel that's just about thumbnails for this YouTube channel. In that channel, every single video on this channel has a thread, and I'll tell my virtual assistants what I want the thumbnail to look like. Then one of my VAs will actually post a sample thumbnail, and I'll interact with them and go back and forth and say, no, let's move this, let's change this. And then maybe even my other VAs will interact on that thread and say how it could be improved. Dropbox is another tool I highly recommend. And the way Dropbox works is you install Dropbox on your computer and your VA installs Dropbox on their computer, and any files you put in the Dropbox folder automatically will sync with your virtual assistant. So if you're working on lots of different things together, it makes it so much easier. OBS and Loom are also essential for recording your screen and showing your VAs how to do the tasks that you want them to do. I also find Google Docs extremely helpful. We use Google Docs to basically create all the different SOPs. Also, Google Sheets is another very helpful tool. We use this to create spreadsheets on all kinds of different things. For example, if I'm having my VAs create a list of the top podcasts in a certain niche, I'll have them do that in a Google Sheet. Asana is another tool that I've been using recently. This is a more advanced tool, but it's really helpful for project management. And finally, secret number 21, and probably my biggest secret, watch this video. I did an 1.5 hour video step by step on how to hire a virtual assistant and all my different secrets. So if you're thinking about hiring a virtual assistant, you need to watch that video. So click on that video. I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.